Welcome to today's penultimate session for the AHP Conference, Extraordinary Times, Extraordinary Practice, 13 Days of AHP. My name is Wendy Wilkinson and I will be your chair today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. While you're on the call today, please feel free to leave your cameras on, but please keep your microphones off. The session is going to be recorded, so if you don't want to be on that recording, then feel free to turn your camera off. All of the recordings are going to be transcribed and translated, and they will then be able to be found on the AHP webpage on HERW's website, so that you can come back and have a look. All of the links and everything, the interactive activities will also be included so that you can access those at some point in the future. So we have an action-packed agenda today. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to include these in the chat bar, and our speakers will come back to you individually so that you have your questions answered. But now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first two speakers, Judith John and Catherine Pape, who are our very, very new AHP leads for public health and prevention. Ladies, over to you.
Thank you, Wendy. Hello, Pau. Hello, everyone. I'm Judith John. Can you all see my presentation? Yeah, good. I'm really, really happy to tell you about the new role that I've taken up jointly with Catherine Pape and with the new AHP leads for public health in Wales as of the 1st of March. So bear with us, we've been in post a week and we are doing this session this morning to try and engage you all in our work going forward. I've been involved in public health work both locally and nationally for a very long time, and I've had the opportunity of being involved in the initial development of this work and the setting up of the Wales group and the first strategy, working closely with Linda Hindle in England, who's going to be presenting a video shortly. After a couple of years back in NHS management during the COVID pandemic, I'm really happy to come back to my roots and take forward this really important programme of work with Catherine. We all know that public health is everyone's responsibility, and this has really been highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic, where everyone has had to play a part in protecting our health. So it's even more important now that we can build on what we've learned from tackling COVID and working together, and how we can apply this collaborative approach to further developing our public health contribution as AHPs collectively. So I'll just hand over to Catherine to introduce herself, and then we will get on with the session.
Thank you very much, Judith. Hi, everybody. Lovely to see you all. My name is Catherine Pape. I'm really excited to be joining Judith in this new role. My background is in speech and language therapy, and I'm doing partly the government as National Speech, Language and Communication Coordinator. So I've been doing that, taking a public health approach to SLC in the early years for the last 2 years, and we've done lots of work with colleagues in the other nations for that work, so I'm really looking forward to taking some of that learning forward into this role. We'd also just like to say a big thank you to Lisa Williams and acknowledge all the hard work that you've done, Lisa, in leading the implementation group for the last few years, so thank you so much. We are starting the planning process immediately to take this work forward, but we need your help to shape the priorities for the coming year. Our session this morning is to think about helping you to help us to shape our priorities, and we want to engage you in the journey that we're taking. Also, we want to demonstrate how this can make a difference to your everyday work and how we can make a healthier Wales. Thank you ever so much. So I'm handing back over to Wendy to share the aims of the session, if that's okay, Wendy.
Absolutely. So today we're aiming to outline the UK context for the AHP contribution to public health and prevention. We've already introduced our new AHP leads. Please don't be shy, get to know them. They're really, really keen to hear about the great work that you're doing and see how they can support you to drive this really important agenda. We're hoping to also showcase some examples of how AHPs are making a difference through public health across a very broad spectrum of practice, and outline what the public health work programme looks like as part of that Looking Forward Together. Also, I think what's most important is we really want to make that connection with you today, with AHPs working across Wales, so we can develop priorities and identify how these roles can support you as we take this work forward. And I guess this leads me to introduce our first speaker. So unfortunately, Linda Hindle, who is our Deputy Chief AHP for England and Lead for Public Health, can't be with us today, but she has sent us a message. Lauren, would you be kind to share the video, please?
Absolutely. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay.
Hello, my name is Linda Hindle and I am the Lead Allied Health Professional at the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities in the Department of Health and Social Care. So that is the new home of what was part of Public Health England. Thank you ever so much for the chance to give a brief update for your meeting today, which I hope is going very well. So OHID, the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities, has the role of coordinating on behalf of the 4 UK nations the development and implementation of our UK-wide AHP Public Health Strategic Framework. So that framework was published in 2019, and its intention is to support us to raise the profile, capacity and capability of allied health professionals in the space of public health. And we're really proud of this strategic framework because it is a true collaboration between the 4 UK nations and all of the professional bodies. We recognise that most of the organisations that we're working with are UK-wide, particularly the professional bodies, our regulator, for example, and most of the actions that we need to take in order to improve the public's health and well-being and to reduce health inequalities are the same wherever we are in the UK, recognising, of course, that the political context may be slightly different in each of our nations. So it's really great that we can work together on this. So I'm absolutely delighted to see Judith John and Catherine Pape appointed jointly as the Allied Health Professional Public Health Leads in Health Education and Improvement Wales, and I'm really looking forward to working with both of them as we continue our journey to implement this strategic framework. So I would like to say thanks ever so much to Ruth Crowder and Wendy Wilkinson for making this happen and creating these posts, because I think they will create that much needed additional capacity, both for Wales but also for the UK wide collaboration. And I would also like to give a shout out to Lisa Williams, who, as many of you will know, has been chairing the Wales Public Health AHP Advisory Group recently, and has done a sterling job and been a great partner within our UK-wide group. So thank you. Look forward to continuing to work with you all, and in particular Judith and Catherine, and I hope you have a good day.
Oh, thank you, Linda, such kind words. I would now like to welcome Alison Ferris, who is AHP Emotional Health and Wellbeing Coordinator for Children and Young People with Public Health Agency in Northern Ireland. Alison, over to you.
Thank you. Can you see that okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good morning everyone, and I'm just delighted to have been invited today to talk to you about how AHPs have been working in public health in Northern Ireland in the early years. So my name is Alison Ferris, and like Judith and Catherine, I have just taken up post in the last couple of weeks as well, so you can bear with me this morning as well. I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour really of some of the work done by AHPs, and if you would like any further details, I've put my Twitter handle on here, but also happy to answer questions in the chat. So just to give you some context of what the Public Health Agency is, it is a multidisciplinary, multi-professional body which has 4 key functions. So those are health and social wellbeing improvement, health protection, public health support to commissioning and policy development, and health and social care, research and development. So there are a number of documents which set the strategic drivers for healthcare in Northern Ireland, which encompasses the role of AHPs, including the Programme for Government, which has making sure children and young people have the best start in life as a key theme. In terms of legislation relating to children and young people, the Children's Services Cooperation Act received royal assent in December 2015, and the aim of the Act is to improve cooperation amongst departments and agencies and places a duty on children's authorities to deliver services aimed at improving well-being of children and young people. The Act requires the Executive to develop and adopt a strategy which sets the strategic direction with a view to achieving improvements for children and young people. And a number of regional AHP posts have been created which will help services meet the requirements set out in this legislation, and in doing so improve outcomes for children and young people. So a Northern Ireland AHP Public Health Group has been established, and the aims of this group really are to demonstrate the impact of Northern Ireland AHPs in public health and to increase their profile in the workforce, to establish strategic connections and leadership, and to support the health and well-being of the workforce. Also to support the implementation of the UK AHP Public Health Framework in Northern Ireland, and to provide Northern Ireland AHPs who have an interest in public health the ability to contribute and share their work together. So AHPs have really strengthened their links with health improvement and health protection teams in doing this. So there are a number of examples of good practice involving AHPs in the early years, and I'm going to give you just a very quick overview of these. So the first is the embedding of AHPs in neonatal units. So these units, AHP services are now available regionally across all neonatal units. This includes dietetics, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, and speech and language therapy. And prior to these posts, AHP services were limited or absent and were based on goodwill and were mainly sporadic and ad hoc in reach from community paediatric services. So the development and integration of these posts have allowed for specialist and dedicated services to all neonatal units in each of the 5 trust areas, delivered on a network basis. So this groundbreaking development ensured that neonatal units in Northern Ireland met the British Association of Perinatal Medicine requirements and have had an enhanced multidisciplinary approach using these 4 professions in each unit. So even though there are 4 separate and very different AHP professions, they have a shared goal, and they work in a transdisciplinary manner which complements and enhances the wider neonatal multidisciplinary team, whilst bringing their own unique professional strengths and skills to these very vulnerable babies and their families. They have developed a systematic way of managing very complex children through targeted early intervention, working in partnership with the multidisciplinary team and collaborating with parents and sharing their knowledge. This is a unique window of opportunity for AHPs to protect critical brain development while working in partnership, sharing their knowledge and skills on neurodevelopmental care to parents and colleagues to improve and enhance the quality and safety of care for premature infants and their families. There has been very positive feedback from this, and these comments really speak for themselves. So in 2018, this initiative was developed by the Public Health Agency and was the overall winner of the Northern Ireland Advancing Healthcare Awards. Rise NI is another example. So Rise NI is a regional early intervention service which supports children in preschool, educational and mainstream primary school settings by working closely with parents and education staff to help children develop the foundation skills for learning. So that would include speech, language, communication, sensory, motor, visual perception, social, emotional and behaviour skills. So this service was launched in 2017 and the team includes speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, dietitians, behaviour therapists, clinical psychology, social workers and therapy assistants. So the teams deliver training and offer advice and strategies to parents and education staff and implement class-based and small group programmes and provide integrated support on a group or individual basis, depending on the needs of the child. So RISE is again a transdisciplinary team which works with schools and parents with children at the centre. This approach uses the skills of each member of the team to develop multidisciplinary programmes to understand and meet the needs of children using an integrated three-tier model approach. Online resources have been developed for parents and education staff using Page Tagger, and the feedback from parents and teachers has again been very positive in terms of the service provided. One teacher stating that RISE is one of the most valuable resources we have as teachers on the ground. One of the most recent developments is the inclusion of art therapies in a new pilot service to schools. So Healthy Happy Minds is a pilot programme in primary schools which aims to improve emotional health and well-being for children. We're looking forward to evaluating the outcomes of this pilot and any future developments. There are two emotional health and well-being frameworks for children and young people in Northern Ireland, one for education and one for health. One for health is in the final stages of being signed off, so as AHPs we will be involved in merging these frameworks to deliver the best outcomes for children and young people. Another recent development has been the launch of the perinatal mental health teams in each trust, and the multidisciplinary team includes an occupational therapist, with the public health aspect involving raising awareness of the presentations which may require occupational therapy intervention during pregnancy and 12 months postpartum for women. To date, one occupational therapist has been appointed and is an integrated and valuable member of that team. AHPs are also represented at the Regional Infant Mental Health Steering Group, with a number of projects being brought forward in this area as well. Now over to the dietitians and registered nutritionists who work collaboratively as a public health dietitian group, and following service user engagement commissioned by the Public Health Agency, developed an innovative series of webinars. So topics included introduction to solids, fussy eating, feeding under fives, lunchbox and snack ideas, healthy diet, healthier you, food and mood, and feeding your family for less. The aim of these webinars was to provide virtual evidence-based nutrition information alongside tips for dietary change to benefit health, to provide virtual signposting for further good quality information on the topic, and to maximise the efficiency of the workforce during the pandemic, and to offer consistent virtual public health nutrition opportunities irrespective of trust boundaries. This project was a finalist in the 2021 UK Advancing Health Awards. And Early Intervention Transformation Programme, or EITP, is jointly funded by 5 government departments and Atlantic Philanthropies. So EITP is a project aimed to transform ways of working through embedding early intervention knowledge and evidence-based approaches to commissioning and delivering services for children and young people and their families. And AHPs have been involved in work streams relating to focused parenting messages around getting ready for baby, getting ready for toddler, getting ready to learn, and play matters. And this is an example of one of the public health posters produced for use across Northern Ireland. So the Public Health Agency, alongside speech and language therapy colleagues, as well as midwives and health visitors, have worked with the Health Improvement Team to develop a strategy to establish a Northern Ireland hub, which will aim to promote and disseminate the work of BBC Tiny Happy People, and the resources will be used in a coordinated way across the region. SLTs have also been active and appearing on the media and organising local events to raise awareness of this excellent resource. There are a number of public health initiatives in early years developed by speech and language therapy. So these would include Help Kids Talk, which is a community-wide initiative which provides awareness sessions for parents, carers, families, and any other community groups who have touch points with children. And this is really to look at what speech and language communication development should look like and what they can do to encourage a child's development and where to go if they need help and support. Hammer the Stammer has been a local initiative where bookmarks and posters have been developed alongside a group of young people who stammer to advise others on how to respond when talking with someone who stammers. And then another project which is sharing information on bilingual language development and promoting bilingualism. So this project identified the most common experiences and thoughts and developed a poster and bookmarks to look at misconceptions around bilingualism. So for example, bilingual children are always late talkers. Learning 2 languages takes twice as long, which is a myth. Parents should not speak using their home language, as this may confuse the child. Parents should speak English to their child, as this is the language they will learn in school. So those myths were really challenged using that project. And a few more examples from speech and language therapy would be the collaborative decision-making model used in Sure Start, which aims to build capacity close to the child. Message of the month. So these are a series of public health messages in relation to promoting early speech, language and communication skills. The use of birthday cards sent to children on their 1st and 2nd birthdays with key messages and developmental norms. And the use of social media to share evidence-based information and resources with a wide range of stakeholders. So as I mentioned earlier, there have been a number of regional AHP posts developed. So we now have a lead AHP consultant for children and young people and interagency, and that is mainly with education. An AHP consultant for early years and a regional speech and language communication coordinator for Sure Start. And 2 new posts, regional AHP consultant for children and young people, and that's just been appointed, and my own post, and as said, I'm just in post for just over 2 weeks. And additionally, there have been posts secured in each trust. So each trust has now got an AHP SEN coordinator, and this is an AHP who coordinates the interface between health and education in relation to statutory assessment for children. We also have an AHP safeguarding lead in each trust, and this is to develop the framework around safeguarding for AHPs. So as I said, that is a whistle-stop tour through public health for AHPs in Northern Ireland, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Wow, Alison, that's extraordinary. Thank you so much for your presentation. I picked up so much around, the use of collaborative decision making, and it's such an exciting time for AHPs with the development of leadership roles. I'm really excited to hear more about the transdisciplinary working and the use of technology in practice. It's just there's so much going on at the moment. There's so much opportunity for how we can shape our services so that they're more targeted and provided earlier. Which is really great. But I think there's a really lovely segue here about the role of creative therapies in that public health and early intervention space. And it now gives me pleasure to introduce you all to Dr. Elizabeth Coombs, who is a music therapist, senior lecturer and program lead for the Masters of Music Therapy at the University of South Wales. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. I'll start slide sharing shortly, but first of all, I wanted to say how delightful it is to see, just as Wendy said, the use of creative arts therapies in Northern Ireland. And I will pop in chat before I leave, and unfortunately I have to leave about 10 o'clock to teach, but listening to your work of adding AHPs into your neonatal units, I've recently done a piece of research with the use of music therapy in sort of a low intensity, I guess, almost public health initiative actually in a neonatal unit, and I'll pop that in the chat for anybody who might be interested to have a look at that, and might be something to think about for future developments there, Alison. So I'm going to start screen sharing now. Okay, there we go. That should be there. Is that working for everybody?
Yep, just need to put it on slide.
Yep.
On slideshow.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Is that connected? Yep, great. Okay, so I'm going to focus on one specific aspect of music therapy work at the moment, which actually segues fabulously from Alison's presentation. Currently, we're actually starting to begin to see some inroads for music therapy into schools. Music therapy, as many of you may know, has got a broad application across health and education. There are aspects of music therapy that can be seen to be developmental. There are aspects of music therapy that can be rehabilitative. And there are also aspects of music therapy that can be used in public health initiatives as well. I think sometimes people don't perhaps quite think outside the box enough about the application of music therapy or the arts therapies. So I think it's really fantastic for us to have this opportunity to put our heads above the parapet and sort of wave our arms around and let you all know that we're here. Just to say as well, for those people who are joining from Wales, because we've got the Masters in Music Therapy course at the University of South Wales, we have these amazing things called students who are always looking for placements. So we're really, really open to developing links with new placement providers. And what I've done is I've popped on this slide a link to music therapy on the HEIW page. Earlier this year in April, we were very lucky to have a showcase week set up by the HEIW, and each of the arts therapies has got a page on the HEIW website, which has got a range of films that you can see showcasing different areas of work. So if what I'm talking about today isn't anything that's clinically relevant to your practice, have a click on that link and you will actually be able to see a lot of other films with some range of work, which is all about lung health, working with homeless people, working with children and young people, some extra additional information. Because today, what Catherine suggested I would talk about would be some work in schools that's just started up. So I'm just going to give you a very, very brief overview of what this work looks like. So as we all know, the impact of COVID has been absolutely massive on the school-age population. We've seen increasing numbers of school refusal and high levels of anxiety and depression. And I think what's really useful about music therapy is it offers a different way to engage children and young people in therapy. Music's in everyone's hands. People have got access to music now through things like phones and apps, lots and lots of different ways that we can engage people. And I think it's something different and something perhaps refreshing. And it also offers opportunities for engagement in a slightly different way. There are some interesting music therapy randomised control studies, so Goldbeck and Ellerkamp 2012 and Porter et al 2012, which actually took place in Northern Ireland. And these showed music therapy to be superior to treatment as usual for children and young people. This was a 12-week project where in Northern Ireland, where young people were allocated to music therapy or treatment as usual. And the music therapy involved, amongst other things, the focus would have been improvisation. So using a range of musical instruments to play interactively with the music therapist. And the finding from this was that effective communication with families healthcare and educational professionals was increased, and that effective communication was sustained at follow-up. So very, very important there. It wasn't just a sort of a transient effect, it was lasting. So what we found is that through engaging pupils in schools in a variety of ways, in different ways of music making, which might be appropriate to their age or developmental levels, we can look at very specific areas of need. Now, at the moment, this is currently happening in Cardiff schools as a small pilot, and it's about to start in Caerphilly, where they've actually employed 3 full-time music therapists as part of their school's counselling service, and they're hoping that these will become permanent posts in September. We'd like to see this happening in a lot more localities. So what and how? So for primary age children, we'd be more looking at sessions that are structured activities, balanced with the opportunities for some free musical play, really interacting with the therapist. So this offers an opportunity for emotional regulation, and there's some very interesting research that looks at how giving children the experience of using different musical elements. So I'm talking about loud, quiet, fast and slow, having opportunities to use those, as I say, you know, whether it's you're playing loudly or softly, fast or slow, that actually links through to children being better able to emotionally regulate. And that's why, as an aside, it's such a shame to see that music education is really declining in schools, because those music classes would have been a great place for all of this to be practiced. We can also look at social skills. And of course, if you're looking at individual work with children, we can then explore emotions related to things like bereavement, anxiety and depression. And something I think is very important, bearing in mind the high level of school refusers that we're seeing, is that it makes them see school as a positive place where positive things can happen and that they actually want to come. For secondary age pupils, we might be looking at something that's a little bit less perhaps physical. So our primary age children are going to be, their feelings are very much in their body, a very embodied experience for them, and hence we might be looking at some more activities. For secondary age children, we might be looking at shared listening experience. So it could be creating playlists that they can then use and be empowered by that themselves to actually use music throughout the day as a regulator of their emotions and as a structure for their day. Songwriting is also something that's very important for young people, whether they use lyric substitution to a favourite song or actually create a new composition. And something that I myself use very heavily are drumming circles for groups, because these promote emotional stability and a real feeling of community and shared emotion. And just as a very, very quick aside for public health applications, what I think is now we've all got these things called mobile phones that in some ways are an absolutely bane of our lives. There are positive ways that we can use these. Creating personalised playlists is really proven to reduce anxiety, and it reduces pain perception in a variety of settings. So everybody really has got the power in their hands to change their mood through music and to motivate themselves. And I think that is something that I'm really passionate about it, because I think that is a much underused public health initiative that is just not applicable just for school settings, but could have ripples throughout the community, because people are probably doing it. But once you start to do something with intention and share those intentions more broadly, I think we could see an incredible impact. And I've popped on this playlist a link to an article, a plain language article that I wrote, it's a while ago now, 2019, in theconversation.com, and that has received over 160,000 reads. And it's still getting over 150 reads a day after all this time. And that, I think, shows that people are really interested in this idea of these playlists, because that article gives you some examples of playlists. So diolch for listening to my rambles. I'm extremely passionate about music therapy, as you can hopefully tell. Please do contact me if you've got any questions, you want any further information. I'll always make time, because I really do feel that music therapy's got a huge place to play, a huge part to play in the development of public health initiatives in Wales, and we're really keen to be part of that. I shall stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Wonderful presentation. It's really interesting, isn't it, how, you know, some of those core classes back in the day, for like music in schools, and how they're not just about learning music, it's about learning, you know, teaching people to use tools to support. I love that idea of that emotional regulation. This isn't about fixing people, it's about learning to kind of drive those feelings that are ours. And the personalized playlists, it makes so much sense when somebody says it out loud. You know, you've got a playlist for going fast and you've got a playlist for going slow. And, you know, we all use them, but we don't necessarily think about using them as tools. And I will absolutely give you another plug. If anybody wants to explore how music therapies could enhance their practice, students are an amazing way of doing this. Those exploratory opportunities to test and evaluate the impact. So please, would if anybody is in Wales and interested in taking music therapy students, would they come straight to you, Liz?
Yes, absolutely, totally. Yep. Always happy to help and do anything we can to facilitate good learning for our students. Yep.
Brilliant. That's outstanding. So thank you so much. Which now leaves me to welcome our last speaker for today. And we're going to come out of the classroom and into the workplace. And so now I would like to welcome Paul Dunning, who is our Professional Head of Staff Wellbeing at Swansea Bay University Health Board. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Wendy. Morning, everybody. I'm just trying to pull up my slides. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Great. So I think I just need to go from the beginning. Okay, I can't see you. I can see you, Wendy, but I can't see anybody else. But
you're all good.
Good to go. Okay, so I've been asked to present really the national perspective around work and health. Judith said I've got 3 or 4 minutes, so I will try and keep it brief. There are only 2 slides, but I've put my email on the front slide should anybody want any further information. Great to hear from you, Elizabeth. I'm an occupational therapist by background, but my first degree was in music, and I did almost take the music therapy route. So it's just lovely to hear some of your research and the benefits of the work that you and your colleagues are doing. But here I am in health and work instead. So the kind of research evidence around good work being good for health and well-being has been around now for kind of, you know, good 15, 16 years. That was established through a research literature review by Waddell and Burton, and the emphasis is obviously on good work. And I think we all know what good work looks like, and we probably all know what bad work could look like. So I won't spend any more time on that. But as a result of that piece of research, a number of strategic documents fell out from UK government around the need, particularly for NHS staff, to be supported with their health and well-being. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But from a public health perspective, as Linda introduced, there's the AHP Public Health Strategic Framework and the implementation group that I know historically Lisa has sat on. And the Welsh Allied Health Professionals Committee influenced the working of that document, and we ensured that there was a work and health goal. Originally that wasn't the plan, but because of the work that's happening in Wales, Goal 5 is around work and health, and Goal 5 is actually the expertise of AHPs will be used to protect and improve the health and well-being of the health and care workforce. So that would be, I would see, our overarching kind of umbrella framework that we work in health kind of work to from a public health perspective. As we know that, you know, from a place from a workplace health perspective, work is a kind of, you know, obvious place to support health, given the amount of time we spend there, the impact of work on our well-being. So work-based support, public health and interventions are crucial and an obvious place to kind of sit. There's a subgroup within the Welsh AHP Public Health Strategic Framework. So that's a workplace health subgroup that I chair, and I feed back up to Lisa, who represents our work in the AHP group. We've got representatives from most of the health boards, and the aim of the group is to try and develop and enhance and implement Goal 5 across Wales. So within that group, we have developed a draft AHPs in vocational rehab report, which Jan Burke has put together, which is a great piece of work articulating the research base and some of the best practice with case studies that happens across Wales. That's gone up to the national UK group, and I know that Linda is aware of that and is working through on how that might be best used to share the best practice that's happening in Wales. We've also got a community of practice around the AHP Health and Work report. So that report is aimed to help patients, service users, their employees and GPs to understand what might be needed in terms of recommendations to help people to return to work or to sustain their place in work. And increasingly that's being used, and I think long COVID has accelerated the use of the AHP Health and Work report as more AHPs have worked within the long COVID field, and getting people back to work or keeping people in work has been really important within that. So back in January, one of the CSP leads, the CSP have funded some training around the AHP Work and Health report. So that was delivered to, I think, probably about 25 AHPs back in January. So there's a kind of snowball effect around the use of the AHP Health and Work report. Nationally, there's a look to legislative changes to broaden the use of the GP fit note, or the Med 3. So that would be a real opportunity for AHPs working in primary care to have increased leverage to support patients to stay in work or to remain in work. The professional bodies, the AHP professional bodies, are supporting this, and I'm aware that some of them are working with DWP and looking at the training needs of AHPs if we were to move into that field. There's a new RSPH AHP's Health and Work Advisory Group. So this is a UK national group that will oversee the work that I've just described above. It hasn't met yet, but I would anticipate that the AHP Work and Health report, the move towards the GP fit note by others, will probably be at the top of their agenda. And then just looking at occupational health and opportunities for AHPs, increasingly we are working in occupational health. Historically, it's been a very sort of traditional doctor-nurse model, but in part because of difficulties recruiting, particularly to occupational health doctors, there's been a move towards a more multidisciplinary model. I think physiotherapy has had quite a long history within occupational health, but others, such as dietetics and occupational therapy, are increasingly beginning to work in occupational health. The UK government have recently released a paper around what's called Health is Everyone's Business, and that really recognises the need to keep people with health conditions and disabilities in work, and they look at and talk about a broadened occupational health model, mention AHPs as being part of the solution. And then people may be familiar with the Bowman report, which came out in 2009. So Steve Bowman is an occupational health consultant who transformed the way that the Royal Mail work and how they look after their staff. So he released a paper back in 2009, which really talked about the need for the NHS to get its house in order in terms of looking after its staff. That report is still very valid. Some of the recommendations, I would say, are just as true in 2022 as they were in 2009. But he's currently working on what is kind of colloquially being called a Bowman 2 report, and that's due for release this spring. And I think that will also talk about the need to improve and accelerate access to support for NHS staff and wider. So that will probably dovetail with the government's report at the top, Health is Everybody's Business. In Wales, there's a current review of the NHS and public sector occupational health by Welsh Government, and there is conversation around a potential One Wales model. So that would be a one occupational health service that would serve NHS, local authority, fire, police, and others. So, you know, a very ambitious sort of proposal that is being discussed at the moment. And then also in Wales, currently there are two services, one in the north, delivered by Real City Strategy, and one which is delivered through Swansea Bay Health Board that I manage, and that's the in-work support, and they are Welsh Government partnerships, but funded through European Social Fund, which obviously, now we're out of Europe, comes to an end in December this year. So currently there are conversations in Welsh Government around the next steps. I'd imagine that plans around what might happen as a result of the learning from in-work support will probably be released in the next few weeks. There is a question mark as to whether or not there might be a national approach to supporting people who work in local small to medium enterprises, so non-public sector services, with health and wellbeing support. So we're just waiting to hear what might happen next and what opportunities there might be to be involved into the future. And there's a question mark as to whether or not they'll access the new Prosperity Fund, which replaces across the 4 nations the European social funding. So that's a whistle-stop tour, as far as I am aware, of kind of, the national approaches to staff health and wellbeing. So thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because quite often when we're talking about practice, we're focusing on what AHPs are doing for others. And what I find really important is that we remember that healthcare professionals are people too, and that we are, we are vulnerable to the same everything that everybody else is. And I'm really interested in the impact that COVID has had around shining a spotlight on the unique contribution that AHPs actually can make in areas of practice which have traditionally belonged to other professions beyond us. So thank you so much. I'm going to look to Judith and Catherine for a thumbs up now. We have had a tiny little tech issue in the background, but we have a contingency in place. Am I right in thinking that we are going to the Mentimeter activity now?
We were going to do a little bit of a mini presentation from ourselves, but we've decided that we'll go straight to the Mentimeter because we want to hear from people here, and you can look at the slides and things afterwards. And we just wanted to, I'll fill in on one slide later about the other work that's going on in Wales that perhaps has already been looked at in previous webinars and presentations. So okay. Yes, the Menti, please.
So, if you want to do your, I can see some of you are responding now. If you do want to use the QR code, I can bring it up here. So you can just either go to menti.com, type in that code, or you can hover your QR code, your camera over the QR code if you're familiar with that way. But I can see some of you are already answering, so I'll leave that up for a second.
And it's great to see that there are some people here that have a minimal role in public health, but they are engaging in this session this morning, so that's great.
Are you happy to move on to the next slide, Judith?
Yep. So these are the overall goals. Obviously, there is some detail underneath these headings on one of the slides that we were going to present, but I think they're fairly self-explanatory. Oh, that's really interesting. Got a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Do you want me to move to the next slide?
Yep. So the RSPH is the Royal Society for Public Health, and they have produced web pages for AHPs across the UK to use. So we're interested to know whether people have accessed this useful resource or toolkit. And the next one, this is just for you to tell us what you have used in just very briefly, really. No, that's useful again. We will be talking about this as we take our work forward and try and open up the use of it to more AHPs across Wales. And also get more Welsh case studies in there. So we're now going to introduce a Jamboard session to gain some input from yourselves around what you feel we can do to help and support you both personally, professionally and in your services to develop the public health profile.
So, Jo, are you able to share the Jamboard? Thank you.
Yeah, the link's in the chat again.
Excellent. So those of you who haven't used Jamboard before, if you click on the link that Jo has put in the chat for us, you should be able to see there a table with 2 different columns. So one is thinking about your profession and one is thinking about your health board.
So we're looking at, firstly, what you think needs to be done within your profession, and secondly, within your health board or wherever you work, local authority, etc., your service that you're part of, and looking at AHPs generally and public health role. It's much easier than writing on a flip chart. And this is again something we would really encourage you to take back to your teams, your services, even your AHP leads in your workforce, and perhaps get them to share it amongst everybody.
That's great. Lots to keep us out of mischief there. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody.
So just briefly, obviously, this is what we'll be taking forward, the Public Health Strategic Framework with all the goals in it. And obviously, this session this morning has been a great opportunity just to get some feel for what people would like us to be doing and what they think the priorities are. We can't do it all. We're here for a year in the first instance, and we want to be able to obviously demonstrate some positive outcomes within the year without sort of, trying to do too much really, but certainly trying to achieve some really good progress and building on the work that's already done. So the timeline just shows that, this work has been ongoing since 2015 in small elements, building up to quite a bit of work around workplace health, for instance, Paul's work, Lisa's work around nutrition skills for life, Catherine's work with Claire on the speech and language therapy with early years, etc. So there's been an awful lot of work already ongoing, and we need to build on that. So this is some of the examples I've just talked about. So we've got physios involved in falls prevention as well. We have AHPs involved in the Healthy Wales or Wales strategy, and there is quite a big push to develop social prescribing and looking at AHP's roles in that. So, there's plenty of work that's been going on, and similar to the work in the other 4 nations, but obviously there's things that they've been able to develop which we can learn from, and vice versa. So we really want to share and work alongside our colleagues across the 4 nations. And it's been a fantastic opportunity, I think, to hear from both Northern Ireland and with Linda's short presentation this morning. So where we are now, as I say, this just really where we've come to. It's forwards. This moves on from the presentation that Lisa did in last summer's webinar, which just shows that we have moved quite a long way. Finding my slide. Sorry. There it is. So one of the key things that was recognised last year and previous to that was having an AHP lead role. So here we are, and we're here to take that work forward. The strategy implementation group is a great group, a core group of enthusiastic individuals from across some of the AHP professions, and I know that some of you are here today supporting this, which is great, but we really want to plead to all professions to get involved in this. And again, having music therapy involved in this session this morning, we've had arts therapy involved, so we really need to get it far and wide across all the AHPs. And we need to really push and develop our understanding of contribution to tackling inequalities and what we can do to tackle health inequalities, as well as the sort of service-orientated work we do that comes under the umbrella of public health. So we will be focusing on upstream primary prevention of chronic conditions and healthy behaviours, and looking at sort of early years prevention and older people in terms of prevention of frailty, falls, malnutrition, etc. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we want to continue to promote the work that we all do with communities alongside the public health workforce and system. Do you want to do the last?
Yeah, so thank you so much. As you can see, there's a couple of slides we haven't covered, but we will be sharing the slides afterwards, so do go back through them and contact us if there's anything you want to add or ask more about. But we just wanted to finish by asking you to write in the chat box one thing that comes to mind that would help or support you personally, your profession or your service to get more involved in the public health programme of work. So if we could finish off with just one thought from each of you in the chat, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you all so much for coming, and we really look forward to connecting more with you as we progress this piece of work. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Wendy, for chairing.